This is a movie that could make 99 of couples break up on the spot. Even single creators feel like finding a partner just to experience the breakup after watching it. Yet it simply and calmly chronicles two artsy youths whose souls are a 100 match. A romance as radiant as a blooming bouquet, and just as destined to wither. But it is precisely this raw authenticity that is enough to shatter every couple's unrealistic illusions about love. This is the film rated 8.6 by nearly 1 million viewers. We Made a Beautiful Bouquet. A young couple is sweetly sharing a single pair of earphones. A man nearby sees right through them. They don't understand music because he's thinking of a certain stereo theory. Music is divided into left and right channels sharing. One pair is a desecration of the sound, but a girl sitting just a few seats away has realized the exact same thing. As they both stand up at the same time intending to educate the couple, their eyes suddenly lock the moment they turn around. The air freezes instantly, the shock in their eyes, avoidance and a hint of unspeakable awkwardness, all intertwined. In silent agreement, they both sit back down pretending nothing happened, but inside their hearts are already in a state of turmoil. Time seems to hit the rewind button, pulling us back 5 years to that winter night that changed everything. Two college students, Muji and Kinu, both lost and uncertain about the future, miss the last train of the night. Fate pushes them into a late-night bistro, along with two other salarymen. The office workers talk loudly about trendy, live-action manga adaptations, their obsession with mainstream pop culture making them seem sophisticated yet dull. Meanwhile, Muji and Kinu, the two artsy youths, sit silently in the corner, feeling completely out of place in this environment. Suddenly Mugi's eyes light up, as thrilled as if he's discovered a new world. He notices sitting at the next table was none other than a master of Japanese animation. Excitedly, he wanted to share this discovery with his companions, only to be met with complete indifference. Mugi's enthusiasm was instantly dampened, the disappointment on his face unmistakable. He didn't notice Kinu, the girl who had been sitting silently behind him, whose eyes had also been shimmering with the same excitement as his. In that moment, they were like two people stranded on the same island, yet they failed to recognize the signals they were both sending. This is perhaps how many real-life romances begin. Searching the crowd for someone who speaks our same language. This language could be a specific book, a film, or an inside joke that only a few would understand. It acts as a secret code once the connection is made. It instantly bridges the gap between two strangers' hearts. The drinks were over, and the salaryman couple had already left in a taxi. Mugi and Kinu said their polite goodbyes, ready to head their separate ways into the night. Just as Mugi turned to leave, Kinu's inner struggle reached its peak, and she summoned every ounce of courage to chase after him. Kusongji and disco, I see mama. No one ninji. Shirugoto wa hiroku. Iban yoshi shitai tobitaihi. Those few simple words felt like a bolt of lightning, splitting the world wide open between them. In that instant, two lonely hearts found the same resonance frequency and drew closer. Walking side by side under the dim streetlights, the conversation flowed like an open floodgate, impossible to shut. They bonded over mocking the other couple's taste, sharing their mutual passion for niche culture. As they stepped into a cafe that was still open, one miracle after another began to unfold. To their astonishment, they realized they were wearing the exact same pair of white sneakers. They both use movie ticket stubs as bookmarks. The way they wind their headphone cords is identical, always into an inextricable tangle. Their favorite book is the same. Most incredibly, they were both planning to see the same show tonight, yet both missed it for various reasons. These coincidences are like puzzle pieces, gradually forming the outline of another me in this world. This feeling transcends a simple crush. It's more like a confirmation of destiny. That smile holds a tacit understanding, the ecstasy of finding one's own kind. It's the relief of fate, finally leading two stray souls back to each other. They moved from sitting across to side by side, their physical distance closing in as if they have endless things to share. This is the most enchanting stage of love, the discovery phase. Every shared trait revealed feels like winning the lottery, sending dopamine surging through their brains. It creates an illusion of predestination, making us believe our meeting wasn't random, but meticulously orchestrated by fate. This sensation greatly alleviates the insecurity modern people feel in intimate relationships. Through a dense series of coincidences, the film elevates this divine moment of love to its peak. A sudden downpour interrupts this beauty. Muji takes Kinu back to his small rented apartment for shelter. The moment Kinu steps into that space, she is stunned once more. Mugi's bookshelf is lined with almost the exact same books and manga as hers. This clearly goes beyond coincidence. It's a deep resonance of the soul. She flips through Mugi's sketchbook. Those simple yet soulful illustrations reveal the boy's inner vision for the future and his passion for life. Mugi considerately brought out a hairdryer and gently helped dry her wet hair as his fingers ran through her hair. The noisy roar of the dryer became the perfect cover for their racing heartbeats. That night, they stopped at just a movie and a late-night snackle. But the seeds of love had already sprouted and were growing wildly. Then came their first official date to see the mummy exhibition they had both missed. Before meeting, they had unknowingly dressed in the same style. They ordered the same coffee at the cafe and their conversation never ran dry. One cup of coffee followed another, and they almost missed the last train again. In the crowded train car, their bodies were pressed close together. The world's noise seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of each other's breath and heartbeat. Urban legend says that if you eat together 3 times without confessing, you are destined to be just friends. This unwritten rule acted like a countdown, urging these two equally timid souls forward. So for their next meeting, they both made up their minds to reveal their true feelings before the last train arrived. They went to see the oddly shaped gas tanks, capturing moments of their youth for one another. They returned to the restaurant where they first met under the warm amber glow. The confession was on the tip of their tongues, only to be interrupted by a man nearby lecturing about headphone stereo. Yes, exactly. The perfect moment kept slipping away as time ticked by, just as they were about to give up. A misdelivered chocolate parfait became the turning point. This unexpected sweetness felt like a final nudge from fate. Then they both raised their phones at the same time, and Mugi was the first to speak.
Will you go out with me? Yes. Goodbye.
No flowery words, no choreographed scenes. With their feelings confirmed, they headed toward the station. At the crosswalk where the light only turns green with a manual button, the red light flashed stubbornly. Under the night sky, they remained silent, simply drawing closer for an innocent yet passionate kiss, placing the final seal of confirmation on their relationship. The blinking red light seemed to echo their racing heartbeats, while signaling a new stage in their life journey. The detail of this manual traffic light is a masterstroke. It is a subtle metaphor. In the early stages of love, everything requires a proactive push. It doesn't turn green automatically and waiting is futile. Only when you summon the courage to press that button can the relationship advance to the next level. It also hints at the importance of active maintenance in their future relationship. When life shifts to autopilot, they forget how to manually nurture their love. From then on, the 100 compatible soulmates entered a honeymoon phase, as radiant as a blooming bouquet. They were inseparable all day long, leaving traces of their love all over their small rental apartment. The pure joy they brought each other was their entire world. They took countless photos by the seaside, firmly believing their love would be as deep and eternal as the ocean. But even the loveliest bouquet has a shelf life. The start of love also marks the beginning of the end. As they were about to leave the ivory tower and face society, the cold, hard grip of reality began to slowly erode their once perfect love. Kinu began the grueling hunt for a job. Exhausted by successive high-pressure interviews, her repeated failures shattered her self-confidence to pieces. One night, she couldn't take it anymore and broke down in tears over the phone. Without a second thought, Mugi rushed to the subway station in his slippers. The moment he saw her, he pulled her into a tight embrace. He comforted her with his own unique, idealistic, artsy kid logics. The cold logic of the market shouldn't dictate your worth. At the time, this was the most sincere consolation Mugi could offer. But such logic appeared pale and hollow in the face of harsh social reality. For the first time, Kinu pushed back. This was the first tiny rift that appeared between them. It foreshadowed that their ways of seeing the world were beginning to diverge. To provide a stable haven for Kinu, Mugi made a brave decision. He wanted to move in with Kinu so they could be together every day. They found a small apartment with a balcony overlooking a bridge in the distance. They excitedly decorated their nest and the bakery downstairs, run by an old couple for decades, became their vision of what ideal love looks like. Those days were undoubtedly sweet. Mugi drew illustrations selling them for 10 yen apiece. Though it was hard work, he was happy doing what he loved. Every night he would wait for Kinu at the station with a book in hand, and they would walk the 30-minute commute back together. That walk became their most precious time. They read manga and rang in the new year together. They even rescued a little black cat and named him Baron. Life was like a fairy tale, but the pressures of reality eventually arrived as expected. The first turning point was financial strain. Mugi's illustrations, originally 10 yen each, were cut by clients to 10 yen for 3 pieces. Then his father came from his hometown, urging him to give up his unrealistic dreams and cutting off his allowance. When Mugi tried to negotiate the original price with a client, the only response he received was the termination of their partnership. That night, Mugi told Kinu that he decided to find a steady job and shoulder his responsibilities as a man. He said he would try his best to stay the way he was, but they both knew deep down that once certain things changed, there would be no going back. This was a pivotal moment, symbolizing an idealist's first surrender to reality. For the sake of love and the future, he chose the path he had once held in the greatest contempt. Mugi cut his hair short, put on a suit, and hurried from one interview to another. Became the very kind of salaryman he used to mock. Kinu also worked hard for their life, but reality, after all, is not an ideal. After entering the workforce, Mugi was assigned to the busiest logistics office. His naive notion that work was just a small part of life was completely shattered. Overtime became a daily routine. Let alone drawing, even leaving work on time became a luxury. The bookshelf that once symbolized their soulmate connection was now covered in dust. The movies he promised to watch with Kinu were repeatedly delayed, and the game console they loved remained unopened long after it was bought. Meanwhile, Kinu managed to find a balance between work and life. She had secured an offer from an accounting firm early on and kept a clear boundary between her job and her personal hobbies. Their lives began to suffer from a severe jet lag and temperature difference, a change reflected in every heartbreaking detail. During a rare date at the cinema, Kinu was spellbound while Mugi was dozing off beside her. This signified that their inner worlds were no longer synchronized. At the bookstore, Kinu excitedly discovered that a sequel to a manga they both loved had been released. He wanted to share it with Mugi, only to find him engrossed in a self-help book on success. At that moment, the look of shock on Kinu's face was the expression of idealism being struck down by realism. The worlds they were reading about were now poles apart. The white sneakers that once brought them together had at some point both turned into black leather shoes, symbolizing their social status. This is the most intuitive visual metaphor. When the white sneakers of youth and freedom were replaced by the black leather shoes of the workplace and its rules, there was already no turning back. They went from sharing everything to having nothing to say. At night, they slept back to back, with an insurmountable galaxy drifting between them.
San, get the 6. Zozo. Then I can be Tony Kikona Hanashimojitai Desu Kadu Yu. The trigger was the closing of the bakery they used to frequent. Kinu sadly shared the news with Mugi.
But Mugi, busy with work emails, replied with cold indifference without even looking up. Kinu was stunned. It wasn't the bakery itself she was mourning, but the disappearance of a symbol that carried their shared beautiful memories. But he could no longer empathize with her melancholy. He no longer understood the emotional value she cherished, seeing only the practical utility of the bread. This was an agonizingly cruel yet profoundly realistic turning point. Mugi's intentions were noble. He just wanted their love to survive in the real world. But Kinu had fallen in love with the boy who was moved by the mundane, who drew illustrations, and who would wait for her with a comic book in hand. This is perhaps the paradox of our lives. To protect something we hold dear, we often end up becoming the very thing we once loathed. Mugi thought he was paving the way for their future, but forgot that Kinu just wanted to live in the moment. The final breaking point came when Kinu decided to quit her stable accounting job and move to an event planning agency she loved, even for half the salary. When Mugi saw the proposal she had prepared, he completely lost his temper.
It's so annoying. Most of it is just terrible. Sorry, more sake. And noodles, baked potatoes, roasted peppers. It's really too much, you know. Rubbing it in. Ginsa namba dai tokuji. Takagi, jo station. No, it's on me. I can't just be out here shouting in the rain on the road. He couldn't understand why Kinu would give up such a secure job to do something that to him seemed like mere child's play.
In the heat of the argument, Mugi bellowed out what was supposed to be a marriage proposal.
Let's just get married and live a simple life together, just like everyone else does. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want us to have an easy life. Does this even count as a proposal?
There were no flowers, no rings, only self-sacrificing compromise-weary tears, and the mundane mess of reality. Kinu broke down. What she truly wanted was the boy who used to critique movies with her, who got excited over their idols, not this man whose head is filled only with the responsibilities and stability of adulthood. Mugi thought taking on these burdens was for their future, but forgot that the things he discarded were the very reasons Kinu loved him. The rift in their relationship became irreparable. The sudden death of Mugi's senior came the final straw that broke the camel's back. Mugi was consumed by immense grief. He turned to Kinu for comfort, but Kinu, knowing that the senior had been a domestic abuser, could not bring herself to feel the same empathy for his death. At that moment they realized completely that they could no longer feel the joys and sorrows in each other's worlds.
Kotsuki naza ojiro, tudomo dake demo mos. Got it, just a common cold. They both needed a sense of ritual for their breakup. This turning point arrived at a friend's wedding.
Looking at the newlyweds on stage, they both felt truly happy for them, but in their hearts they had both silently decided to end it.
Konnichiwa. 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 This was the final piece of tacit understanding between them before parting.
After the wedding, it felt as though they had returned to the day they first met. They rode the Ferris wheel together, reminiscing about the awkward moments of their first date. Arriving at the restaurant where they first confessed their love, they even felt a pang of regret because their usual table was occupied. Sweet memories of the past played out like a movie, greening in their minds and stinging them both. Neither could bring themselves to say the words, but in the end, Kinu was the braver one. She gracefully thanked Mugi for his companionship over the last 5 years, calmly discussing the move and who would keep the cat. Just as the end was in sight, Mugi couldn't help but make one last attempt to hold on. He proposed a plan that sounded incredibly rational, yet was utterly cruel. This speech is the most realistic and suffocating part of the entire film. It reveals a widespread view on marriage when love can no longer be sustained. Use marriage to prolong it when marriage fails. Use children to hold it together. It is a compromise based on responsibility and habit having nothing to do with love. But at this moment, fate held up a most cruel mirror. A young couple sat down at the very table they used to occupy. The couple wore the same white sneakers they once did, chatting about literature and music with the same excitement, their eyes fixed only on each other, sparkling with dreams for the future. Watching them, Mugi and Kinu felt as if they were looking at themselves from years ago. That purity, that fervor, that 100 synchronization. Now only the trivialities of daily life remain between them, along with helplessness and exhaustion. At this moment, Kinu could no longer hold it back. She covered her mouth and ran out of the restaurant. Back at the same traffic light where they had their first kiss, these two who agreed to part with a smile now wept like children as they said goodbye. The moment he rushed out, Mugi tightly embraced the sobbing Kinu. This was likely the last time they would ever hold each other. They felt the warmth of each other's bodies once again. Yet, they could no longer feel the hearts that once beat so wildly for one another. The design of this ending avoids the cliché of dramatic fights or bitter arguments. Instead, it uses a mirror image to let them see reality for themselves, which is far more powerful than any debate. And they weren't defeated by one another, but by time. Defeated by the different versions of themselves they had become. Half of their tears were shed for each other, and the other half for the selves they could never return to. They ended their relationship peacefully. After the breakup, they lived like friends again, staying together for another 3 months without the label of lovers. Life actually felt much lighter, as if they had returned to the past, to the days of sharing meals and watching movies together. On the day of their final parting, they played rock, paper, scissors to decide who would keep the cat, before diving into the crowd separately, never to contact each other again. The story returns to that cafe scene 5 years later, when Mugi and Kinu crossed paths again on their separate life tracks. There were no hugs, no small talk, not even a single word exchanged. Instead, as they turned to walk away in opposite directions, they waved at each other with their backs turned in perfect silent understanding. That wave held so many complex emotions. It was a farewell, a blessing, a regret, and above all, the ultimate tribute to their shared existence. They had both become better, more mature adults, but the cost is that they can never go back to being the versions of themselves that once made each other's hearts flutter 100. After returning home, Mugi tries to search for that closed bakery on Street View, only to unexpectedly witness the second miracle of his life. In the Street View data from a few years ago, he sees Mugi and Kinu from that time, holding hands and carrying bread, smiling with pure sweetness. That moment was frozen forever by the camera. It being the most fitting epitaph for this relationship, proving that their love did indeed exist as radiant as a bouquet of flowers. We made a beautiful bouquet is not a textbook on how to sustain love. It is more like a precise autopsy report on the death of a romance. It tells us that even a 100 soulmate connection may be no match for different paces in life. We often believe love conquers all, but what eventually defeats everything might just be the harsh reality of life. It also forces us to reflect. Is the love we pursue a kindred spirit who reads manga and discusses films with us, or a teammate who can weather the storms of real life by our side? When the kindred spirit and the teammate are incompatible, how do we choose? So don't rush to break up after watching this. It is an invitation to examine our own relationships. Perhaps that person on your frequency still has the courage to create resonance and the patience to maintain the bond. The film makes us realize that some goodbyes are not meant for forgetting, but to better prepare us for the next journey ahead. Love is often not because of a lack of affection, but because two people are no longer in sync. The essence of growth is a process of constantly falling out of step. May we all experience a love as radiant as a bouquet, and may we all have the courage to calmly say goodbye when the bouquet withers.